Hello, my name is Eugene King. I'm a Senior Sales Engineer here at LANSA, and today I want to take you through installing the free trial version of our development tool, Visual LANSA. Now, during this session, I will take you through what you need to do to prepare for the installation process itself, which once it's been kicked off will take between 30 and 40 minutes. Once the installation has been completed, we'll look at how you can get started by creating your first web application and how you can deploy it to the cloud with a single click. Now, as part of the free trial, you'll also get access to a number of resources, including Learn LANSA. And finally, we'll look at what to do if you have problems during the install. But first, let's look at what we need to do to prepare for the installation. Firstly, we'll need to download the installation software, and this download normally takes between 30 and 40 minutes. You may also want to check if port 22 is open on your firewall. Now, this is purely optional. Port 22 is used during the installation process to set up a cloud instance to allow you to deploy your web applications. You must make sure to run the installation as a local administrator. And finally, if you are using a private email address like Gmail, you'll need to register this with LANSA before starting the installation process. Now that that is out of the way, let's install LANSA and look at how we can get started developing and deploying web applications. I've already downloaded the installation software and extracted it from the zip file. To run it, I right-click and run as an administrator. This will extract the installation software into a local temporary directory. Once this has been completed, we do an environmental check to make sure everything is ready for Visual LANSA. And then you need to enter your personal information, including company and email address. If you are using a personal email address, make sure to register it with the installation team first to allow you to do the install. Finally, we're presented with the various parameters for the installation, including the installation directory, the database, and the user ID for Visual LANSA web configuration. We're just going to leave those as default. And finally, we press install, and the installation process has now begun. If at some point the installation fails, then please look at the troubleshooting section in this presentation. Once the installation is complete, we're presented with the Visual LANSA Logon dialog. To start Visual LANSA, just press the OK key. The first screen that you will see is entitled Let's Get Started, and this will take you through how to develop your first web application. I'm simply going to press Yes Please, and this will now give me a description of what I'm going to be creating. I'm not going to go into any detail during this session. I'll just quickly go through and accept the defaults for the application itself, including the name, any prefix used, and what information to actually display. For example, the contacts is maintaining a database table, so we have different options there for this. What table we're going to be looking at, in this case it's X contacts. We're going to use a create, read, update, and delete data. So that's a CRUD that we're going to be using. It's going to be a list that's showing the full name, full address, and email address. And it'll then generate a couple of more tabs as well, including who we are and a placeholder for a chart. And I'm going to just build my application. So this will now build all the appropriate pieces, the server-side logic and the client-side logic. Once it's been completed, we're then presented with a number of different options. We can execute our application. We can look and see how we can deploy that to the cloud. We can take the link to learn more and go to Learn LANSA. But we can also continue to the visual editor. Now for this example, I'm going to initially go to execute. And this is executing it locally. So this is on my local machine using IIS and my SQL Express installation. I'll then be asked to log in. I'm just going to accept the defaults for that and go sign in. And that will bring up a list of my contacts. If I select a contact, I can see the details. We can add notes, and we can add attachments to it. Now let's have a look and see how we can deploy this web application to the cloud. So I'm going to close this browser window down. I'm going to continue to my editor. Once Visual LANSA opens up, we are automatically shown the favorites option, specifically my application. This is the one that I've just generated. On this tab, I can see all the constituent parts that make up this application. Views, dialogues, server modules, reusable parts, and the various resources which are used. Now this particular session, I'm not going to go into any details on this. Later on in the presentation, I will give you some links to the various resources available, including Learn LANSA, which contains a number of tutorials which explains these in detail. So for this particular session, I want to validate the cloud install. So I want to run this on the cloud and deploy it on the cloud and then run it on the cloud. I'm going to do a right click, go into My App and select the Deploy option. This will now package up my application, all these component parts that are in that list, and deploy them to my cloud instance, which in this case is the Amazon Web Services. Once the job status goes to completed, I go up to my main, do a right click and execute in the cloud. So I'm no longer executing it locally. I'm now executing it, and you can tell by the URL. So we're using eval5 paz.lansa.com. So this is now running on an AWS instance. If I select the contacts and sign in, we get a list of all of our contacts like we did previously when we were running it locally. I select one of my contacts, I can see their details, and again we've got the notes and everything else. So we've now validated the local install, and we've also validated the cloud install. So that concludes the installation tutorial for this part of the session. Now what I'm going to look at is I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to look at the resources which are available to you, and also troubleshooting the install if you have problems with that install. Now let's take a look at the resources that are available to you. Now as part of the trial experience, you will have access to a number of resources to help you get up to speed with developing Visual LANSA applications. After you've registered with Learn LANSA, you will have access to a series of tutorials and courses that will ensure you experience the full capabilities of using Visual LANSA. You will also have access to the developer's resource site. This site contains a number of links to all the resources you will need during your evaluation of Visual LANSA. This includes the documentation, LANSA support, LANSA forums, and all the LANSA blogs. But what if something goes wrong during the installation? I'll take you through the common issues we have during the installation process. The main cause of an installation failure is the PC requiring a reboot after the SQL server has been installed. Now this is because Windows maintains the lock on the server while it does the update and won't release it until after the PC has been rebooted. Once the reboot is completed, you just need to run the install process again. This will normally resolve the issue. However, in some circumstances, the lock isn't released and you will still get a failure because of the lock on the SQL server. If this happens, you will need to uninstall the Microsoft ODBC driver 17 for SQL. Once that's uninstalled, reboot your PC and start the install process again. Now, in the unlikely event that the first two steps have not resolved the issue, you should try to install the ODBC driver yourself. You can download the ODBC driver from the Microsoft site. Once this has been installed, reboot your PC again and start the install again. If the installation is still failing, please contact one of our installation teams and we'll be happy to help you. Now, there are a couple of other environmental issues which could also cause the install to fail. Now, after the install process has installed the C++ compiler, the installation may stop as your PC may need to be rebooted to complete the installation. Again, in this case, just reboot your PC and start the install again. Another problem which may occur is that your antivirus software may decide to quarantine some of the required install objects, which will result in an installation error. If this happens, add the object to the save list, start the install process again. If this fails, you may need to temporarily disable your antivirus software while you run the install. And again, if you're still having problems, please don't hesitate to contact one of our installation teams. And you can see the contact details here. Now, if you would like to talk about licensing and pricing, then please contact a member of our sales team using the info@lansa.com.